Because I've had
just the possibility that it was carrying taconite iron ore, but it could have been carrying something else.
But until we get it verified, we don't want to lose credibility. So remember, this is very important. The Fitzgerald had only been to, this was the third time that whole year they've been to Superior. They were always going to Silver Bay. This is the third time they've been in there. Now, please keep in mind, folks, that a short ton's 2,000 pounds. A long ton is 2,240 pounds. Okay? This is very, very important here. And the loading master said they loaded 26,116 tons. Well, if you multiply that times 2,240 pounds, you get 58,499,840 pounds. However, at the same time, they loaded 50,000 gallons of fuel. Let's add that up, shall we? Bunker C, that's what they loaded up, is 8.2 pounds per gallon. We know water is 8 pounds a gallon. Diesel fuel is 7 pounds a gallon. And home heating oil is 7.2 to 7.3 gallons. Well, anyway, they loaded 50,013 gallons at 8.2 pounds. That's 410,106 pounds. Added to that, the Fitzgerald was actually hauling, cargo-wise, in fuel, 58,909,946. Just call it 59 million. Now, the thing that I want to bring your attention is here, about one half of the cargo that Fitzgerald received was dumped onto the pockets directly from ore cars, meaning on top of the dock they got railroad tracks.
This is in Superior for its final load.
Yes, so they can open the bottom of the cars there, goes right in.
Mm-hmm.
The other half of the Fitzgerald was loaded by conveyor belt, which is up the ways there, and they could weigh that. They had no way of weighing those railroad cars but they're only good for 100 tons. You can't put anything more than 100 tons in there. So that is an approximate weight. They will never know exact weight unless, now had they gone over 100 tons in those railroad cars, they'd break down. You know, I've hauled many times whole trains, 2-mile-long trains of taconite. For you and I's information there, when it says half of the Fitzgerald was dumped into the pockets directly from ore cars. You know, I'm ESPN you something else right now about some kind of cars, you know. Well, you think about that. So, because I've had
just the possibility that it was carrying taconite iron ore, but it could have been carrying something else.
Exactly my point. But I've had people tell me, no, the whole thing is conveyor belt. No. Right here is a Coast Guard report. You can put those railroad cars right on top of the loading dock, and then the chutes come down, you know. And there's 300 tons, I think it was, per. In other words, everything came down to be 300 tons. They start at the back and 330, and keep it level. Then they'd go back and do, as they had to trim the vessel up, then they'd go 100 tons here, 100 tons there, 100 tons there. And it all goes back to what I've been saying all along, is that I just wonder if in the loading of this, the center section was not loaded properly, or because it's awful strange to me that the bow looks like a bow of a ship, the stern looks like a stern of a ship, but the middle looks like I'm not going to say a bomber, because I'm not trying to elude a bomb went off, but I'm just saying it's totally disintegrated.
Well, it's 200 feet gone.
You would think, like I said, when I was at Ground Zero in New York City 6 weeks after it happened, 1,000-foot, you could still see great big panels of the side of the frickin' building. This thing only went down 529 feet. And there ain't nothing there, man. I'm just telling you, it's, I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry, but I thought that was very important.
There could have been something different other than taconite in the center hole.
Boy, oh boy. I would sure like to find out more about that. What did I just say? If this doesn't say it all. Where history and mystery collide as we probe its secrets, and for every answer uncovered, new questions arise, perpetuating the cycle of fascination. We keep digging and digging. Other people keep digging and digging. I'm telling you right now, one of these days it's going to come out. I don't know when. There's just so much more that meets the eye. Now, let's go back to the tape. I'm sorry. You know how we get... I'm an old hippie trying to adjust. I get off the beaten path here. 140 true. Here we go. You were bringing up last time something about that, because the track line is different on the bottom than
the Coast Guard track in the report will show you the Fitz was on a heading of 141. As it sits on the bottom now, the bow's pointed at 125. I don't know exactly what that means. Does it mean that if it's on the bottom at 125, it was on the top at 125? I don't know, but the headings are different. It's laying in the mud at 125. The heading on the chart in the report says 141. And I don't know that I can make something out of that or not.
Well, if she gets lifted up by that third sister, would it go straight down or would it kind of... And the propellers now is out of the water, so you're going to have torque here, you know, that...
and serious vibration.
So I'm just so grateful that Keith Baker got us this tape because that's a big... fills in a lot of blanks here. Fills in more pieces of the... To actually hear Captain Cooper...
Maybe for you, I seem like I got more questions now for another time.
That's what I do.
That's what you just did. Kind of spun me out there from
Hey,
NORAD to fancy lights in the sky to...
Come on, what else you gonna do? It keeps you off the streets, right?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on the streets these days. I've barely come out of my cave. Are you kidding?
Okay, now we get really interesting here. Because it's toward the end of the tape, at roughly 4:40 a.m., they start spotting life jackets and debris. They're in the debris field. Now, don't forget, the northwest wind is blowing things toward Coppermine Point. It was difficult to get some of the bigger stuff because when he would throttle back to go get it, well, the wind would blow it away. Plus, now he's losing control over his ship. And don't forget, he's still in 18-foot seas here, see?
Sure.
So picking stuff up was a real bear, man. And about that time, the Coast Guard, some woman gets on there. It's obviously 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:40, so shift change. Anderson, we need a weather report. And he had just reported and said that I have entered the debris field. We're seeing what we can do. We need a weather report. He says, I don't have time to give you a weather report. We're seeing if we got any survivors here. You know, I thought to myself, how stupid is this? And then the William Clay Ford calls in and says they're in a debris field too. They're picking stuff up. And the same woman goes, we need a weather report. And I'm thinking, And then unfortunately, that's the end of it. At 4:40, when he says we're in a debris field, it stops. That's 86 minutes, and it's very interesting to listen to. So, are we still rolling?
Yeah.
It wasn't until, ladies and gentlemen, November 14th, 1975, that the U.S. Navy flew a plane over the site. We're looking for it. And they had on a MAD device. That's called a magnetic anomaly detection device. And by crisscrossing, they found what they appeared to be the wreck and an oil slick. And they said it was at 47 degrees, 0 minutes north, and 85 degrees, 6 minutes west. And if you put that in right over there, and but like I said, Fred Shannon came up with the exact GPS coordinates. These are Loran C and Loran A coordinates. You know, big progress in 20 years. And,
Sure.
And I would tend to believe Fred Shannon's more. And if he says the bow is in American waters, then I truthfully believe that's exactly what it is. It is in American waters.
You've talked quite a bit about NORAD. What is NORAD?
In the Cheyenne Mountains, very deep in the mountains, are supposedly an atom bomb can't take it out. You know, that's where our deepest, and it takes all the radar data, at least they did then, and it all goes to the Cheyenne Mountains, okay? And that's who scrambled those 2 jets there from the Selfridge Air Force, because they were reading something that didn't make sense.
So do you think these jets from NORAD were sniffing things they didn't, that were...
They could, but I would think jets are 400 or 500 mile an hour stuff. Who knows what kind of technology they've got for that. I agree. It could be, but the story, and you get on the internet, that you can read that thing I just told you about. You look up NORAD and you put up UFO activity over Lake Huron in 1975, and that'll come up. And as I said before, people don't take that the wrong way. I ain't saying they're little green men from Mars. I'm saying we've got aircraft far beyond what people, think we got. Because the Germans, as goofy as they were on war, they had it together, man, on some of this technology. We've got things that anti-gravitational devices and stuff, Is it possible? Well, I just told you about Chuck Yeager, the guy with a gorilla mask on because he had to turn the fake propeller off, And that was clear back in the 40s. Well, here we are, 80 years later. I think we probably made some progress. Look at where we went from Charles Lindbergh in 1927, right, to putting a man on the moon in, when was that, 68 we got on the moon?
68-ish,
That's
somewhere
what it
there,
was.
yeah. I mean, Wilbur and Orville Wright's first flight that went for about 120 feet in 1903, I guess it was.
I've been there.
Kitty Hawk.
Yeah.
67 years later from that moment, we're on the moon.
Yeah, I walked it.
You walked on the moon?
There's some bomb stuff, boy, let me tell you.
Yeah. That was a good
No,
shit,
at Kitty
man.
Hawk, where they did their first flight. They
Right.
got it set up there,
Right.
Kill Devil Hill is right there. And I walked that 120 feet. Carl Nerndorf, is this still rolling? Captain Carl Nerndorfer was captain of the Middletown. My dad was captain, or getting punchy here, chief engineer in the Middletown. He said they'd be out. I remember telling you this earlier before on another thing when I go out at Whitefish Point, the compass would just spin, right? And that's odd too, but he attributed it to the iron ore deposits. He says, you go across and head towards Silver Bay, I don't know how many miles away from Duluth, and a mirage would appear, and it's the entire skyline there of Duluth. And I've read about mirages, how the atmosphere can bend in certain ways, certain temperature things, and it makes people see mirages, I always thought that. Here's a Captain Nerndorfer. I mean, these guys that run these boats, they don't let flakes run these boats. They got to have their act together. They're not drug addicts or alcoholics. They're not, you know what I'm saying? They're not denizens of the deep, so to speak. With criminal records, they've got it together. And you can trust them, for God's sakes. And if he tells me he saw mirages out there, I'm going to believe it. But to have NORAD paint a picture, they ain't going to paint no mirage. A mirage is an atmospheric condition. You got to have an actual target that bounces back, And that's why I say I think we've had super duper aircraft here for some time. So there's you can't believe the government. It's a shame it's got to be that way. I know we need national secrets. Of course we do.
Whether the Fitzgerald went aground or it didn't go aground, and people go both ways on that, and I get it because everyone's got their opinion and welcome to it. But you often hear it could not have gone aground because there are no marks on the stern. Okay, if that's what you believe, okay, but you have to add the fact that there's 200 feet in the middle that's missing, disintegrated, something we really can't investigate. And of course, the bow's planted in the mud, so we don't know what's going on underneath the bow. But when someone tells me it didn't go aground because there's no marks on the stern, that's a head scratcher for me. You?
First of all, the skillful art of misdirection has been in play over this thing for a long time.